You'll notice that I have the front of the loom facing the warping peg, and then the back of the loom I have at the end of my table. And that cone of yarn I'm actually going to put on the floor behind the loom and the table because I want it to come off the cone without tension. This is an awkward angle, but I just wanted you to see how the warping yarn is coming off the spool right there and then on to the back of my loom. Okay, reminder, my yarn is coming off that cone from behind my table. I have my back apron bar here. If you wanted to thread the entire width of your heddle, then you would want to tie on here, but I am only going to be making something about 12 inches wide, so I am going to start around here. You can mark that with a piece of painter's tape if you need it to be exact, but since I know I have a little bit of wiggle room here, I'm not overly concerned. So I'm just going to tie on back apron bar. Remember, you have your warp beam, your back beam, and then your back apron bar, and that's what we just tied our warp to. I'm going to use my reed hook, and I'm going to catch my yarn. I want it to be pretty straight from the back apron bar to the first dent here, and I'm going to pull through, and you'll see how that is actually creating two ends, two warps. So you're going to pull your warp from the front of the heddle with your hook, and you're going to pull it towards the warping peg, and you'll place it on top of the peg, and then you're going to go back to your heddle, and you'll be taking your hook, placing it from the front of the heddle towards the back, and then you're going to pick up your warp and place it on top of the hook. Notice that in this video, my warp is actually coming from underneath my back apron bar, which is totally fine, and then we'll place it on my hook and pull it to the front. The next time you come to the back of your loom, it's actually the opposite, and you'll have to grab the warp from underneath. So you're going to switch each time sequentially. Now that I have my warp towards the front of the loom, I'm going to bring it over the top of the warping peg and then go back to the heddle again and repeat this process. Remember, each time you're at the warping peg, you want to make sure that you're stacking your warps on top of each other and not looping them underneath and making it crossed like that. You want to on top. You'll notice that we're finished warping and we are at the back of the loom. I have my yarn still connected to my cone. I'm going to cut that. And then while keeping tension, pull that tight, I'm just going to tie it to the back apron bar. You will be able to adjust your tension a little bit more later, but it's always nice to start out with as even tension as possible. So just a double knot. The next step is to tie a choke tie at the front of the loom at your warping peg, and then we're going to cut our warps. You're going to want a partner if possible. I do not have one, so I will be demoing how to roll your warp on without a partner. Notice that I didn't cut this end of the warp. A lot of people do, but since I'm rolling back by myself, I'm going to keep the loops intact. I'm also going to be holding really tightly like this, but I'm going to be choking up on my warp, and I will move the camera down so you can see it, and then I'll have to move my hand back as I wind on.